The Nevada desert has a strange way of draining the world of sound. Long stretches of highway cut through empty land where wind just slips through dry brush, where old signs creak on rusted hinges, and where distance blurs into heat. Travelers moving through this landscape often stop at small motels, places built decades ago, back when road travel was slower and more uncertain. One of these motels, according to a story repeated in hushed tones, has a room that no one stays in willingly. The motel itself is unremarkable. Faded paint, a neon sign that flickers between letters, and a gravel lot still warm from the sun even after dark. The man in the story was just passing through, driving from California to Colorado. Long hours on the road had worn him down, and when he saw the motel's dim lights glowing just off the highway, he decided it was better than pushing through another 100 miles of darkness. He walked into the office and found an elderly clerk sitting behind the counter, her glasses low on her nose as she filled out paperwork. She looked up when he entered, offering a polite nod. When he asked for a room, she hesitated not long, but long enough for him to notice. Then she handed him a key with a dull brass tag. "There's only one left," she said softly. "Room 19, her tone carried something he couldn't place. Not fear, exactly. More like reluctance. Before he could ask why, she added, "The room gets quiet. Some guests don't like that." He assumed she meant it was near the end of the building, far from traffic or noise. For hours of listening to tires against the highway, quiet sounded like a luxury. He thanked her and stepped back into the night. The motel's walkway was lit by a row of weak bulbs. Most rooms were dark, curtains pulled shut. A dog barked once in the distance, then fell silent. He reached room 19 and unlocked the door. The moment he stepped inside, something felt off. It wasn't the decor, a simple bed, old carpet, a small window looking toward the desert. It wasn't the temperature-cool air from the swamp cooler hummed faintly. It was the absence of sound. His bag brushed his leg as he set it down, but made no noise. His boots scuffed the floor, but the familiar scrape was muted, swallowed before it could even reach his ears. He paused, just listening. The cooler in the corner spun, its fan visible, but he heard nothing from it. The light above him buzzed softly when he flipped the switch, but only visually. The sound itself was missing. He tried snapping his fingers, no sound. He clapped once, silence. Motel room isn't supposed to feel like a vacuum, but that was the closest word he could think of. The air felt heavy, thick with an impossible stillness. It reminded him of walking into an old cathedral where sound seems to hide in tall ceilings. Except here the room was small, almost too small. He opened the door again. Instantly, the world rushed back, crickets chirping, wind brushing the metal railing, the distant hum of highway traffic. Everything normal, healthy, alive. He stepped back inside. Silence dropped around him like a heavy curtain. He tried to convince himself that the room's insulation was just unusually good, but that didn't explain the lack of noise from the cooler or even from his own voice. When he said hello, the word exited his mouth but sounded wrong, flat, thin, like hearing a recording played underwater. He sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress dipped, but the springs made no sound. For a few minutes he tried to relax, telling himself he was just tired, imagining things, letting the desert's isolation seep too far into his thoughts. But then he noticed something else. The quiet wasn't constant. Every few minutes he felt a faint pressure shift in the room, as though someone had walked past him, disturbing air he couldn't hear. The change wasn't a noise, more like temperature brushing against his arms, or the sensation of a presence just beyond his vision. He stood and walked toward the bathroom. The door was open, nothing unusual. Yet when he stepped inside, the silence deepened. His heartbeat, normally dull but audible in quiet spaces, completely disappeared. He felt it tapping in his chest, but he couldn't hear it. He exhaled sharply, watching his breath fog slightly in the mirror. The room wasn't cold, but that small cloud unsettled him. He wiped the mirror with his hand. Faint smear remained, nothing strange, just residue from cleaning. But then he noticed another smear beside it. Not from him. It looked like the outline of fingers pressed against the glass. His pulse accelerated. Again, he felt it physically, but heard nothing. The mismatch between sensation and silence made the world tilt for a moment. He backed out of the bathroom and went to the door, intending to leave. But when he grabbed the handle, the metal felt unusually warm, like someone had held it just moments earlier. He opened the door. The night sounds rushed in again, crisp and comforting. Stepped outside, inhaling deeply, grounding himself in the normal world. He considered returning the key and asking for another room, but exhaustion tugged at him. He told himself he would just sleep with the door cracked open or maybe with music playing from his phone. When he re-entered room 19, he kept the door partially open. The outside sounds filtered in the wind, gravel shifting under a car tire somewhere. Gradually, as he lay back on the bed, he drifted toward sleep. But at some point, he awoke abruptly. The door was closed. He didn't remember closing it. He sat up quickly, pulse pounding. Once again, the silence filled the room completely. He could not hear the cooler or the light or his own breathing. Yet something in the darkness felt wrong, heavy, like a gaze resting on him. He switched on the lamp. The bulb flickered silently. The bathroom door was closed now too. He stared at it, trying to steady his thoughts. Maybe he had closed it earlier without remembering. Maybe fatigue had blurred everything. But the longer he looked, the more he felt the air shifting again, a soft movement like someone was standing on the other side. He approached the bathroom slowly. His heartbeat surged, but no sound accompanied it. He placed his hand on the door. It was warm again, warmer than before. He pushed it open. Nothing was inside, but the mirror was fogged over as though someone had breathed on it. Slowly, words began to appear in the condensation shape, not by human fingers, but by some irregular motion. Not letters, not symbols, just the impression of a hand sliding downward as though wiping away space itself. He stepped back. The silence around him vibrated with pressure, thickening until the room felt smaller, narrower, closing in. Without thinking, he grabbed his bag and ran to the door. This time, it did not open immediately. The latch stuck, as though something on the other side was pressing back. His pulse hammered with a fear he could not hear. Finally, the door gave way, and he stumbled into the night air, sound slamming into him like oxygen. Crickets dot wind, a dog barking, the hum of a distant engine. He didn't look back. In the office, the clerk watched him enter, breathless. She didn't seem surprised. Room 19 gets quiet, she said again. He slid the key across the counter. She picked it up gently, as though it were fragile. He asked her, his voice shaking, why the room was like that. She just shrugged, glancing toward the row of darkened doors. Some places keep their silence, she murmured, and some people hear it more than others. He spent the rest of the night in his car, engine off, listening to every sound with gratitude. In the morning, when he drove away, he saw room 19 in his rearview mirror. Its window reflected the desert sun. For a brief moment, he thought he saw someone standing inside. But when he looked again, the room was empty. Only the silence remained. Thanks for watching. If you have a story about a place that felt wrong, share it in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more strange tales.